Okaeri nasai. So today I thought I would do one of my most requested videos, which is what I do here in Japan, who I work for, how I came over here, that kind of story time. There are a couple different sections to this story, so I'm going to start off with just comparing Eikaiwa versus public school world here. Oh, my soba water! Okay, now that we had some water spillage, let's get back to it. I wanted to compare the Eikaiwa versus public school kind of sectors of Japan. So, when you come over, you can work in either the public or the private sector. The public sector is where you work for public schools, and there are many companies that hire for that. And the private sector is where you tend to work for Eikaiwas, or private English schools, which there are many companies that hire for that as well. Let's get started with the public schools. So the most popular program and the most well-known program for working in public schools is by far JET. JET is a government-run program, so it's really hard to get into, and it's quite a long interview process, but they do take very good care of you from what I've heard, and it is the best paying option out of all of them that I know of anyway. I did not try to enter JET. I didn't go through the interview process or anything, but there are many videos on YouTube about people who did go through that process and have personal experience. So if you're interested in JET specifically, I would go and find someone who had personal experience. But from an outsider's point of view, I've heard nothing but good things about it. There are other companies that hire, but that one is by far the most prominent. When you work in the public sector, you won't actually be an English teacher. You'll be an ALT, which is an assistant language teacher. When you're an ALT, you don't actually run the classroom. You are an assistant to a Japanese English teacher. So if you want to come over here and just kind of ease into the teaching world and get a feel for what your responsibilities will be, an ALT is a really good option for you. Again, I've heard pros and cons about being an ALT. And also in the public sector, you tend to work Monday through Friday. So it's early morning, you work during the school day, and then you're off Saturday, Sunday. In the Eikaiwa world, which is where I work, you tend to work Saturdays as well. Not as well. You tend to work like Tuesday through Saturday, which is what I work. I worked on Saturdays in the U.S. as well, so that wasn't too big of a hit for me. But if that's a deal breaker for you working on Saturdays, then the Eikaiwa world may not be for you. The reason for this is that at an Eikaiwa you work after hours, so you'll work probably from a range of 1 o'clock to 10 p.m., so 1 p.m. to 10 p.m. When students and adults get off work or get out of school, then they go to the Eikaiwa for an English lesson. So you'll be working like after those business hours. There are pros and cons to both sides of things. For both of them, I would say the pay averages around 250,000 yen, which is around $2,500 a month approximately. That's the average. So if you're trying to come over here to work and a company offers you less than that, I don't advise for you to take it, because it's pretty easy to get paid that much elsewhere. So I wouldn't accept a job that pays less than that. Because, that is the average here. And the company that I work for, IAC, their prices are competitive with that. Also, I know that with the public sector, so working for JET or anywhere in the public schools, you don't have any choice as to where you work, where you go. So if you just want to come to Japan, you don't really care if it's the city or the country or really where you go, then that's an awesome option for you. It'll be a nice little surprise as to where you're going to go. But with some of the more private schools, I know Interac at least allows you to request places. And Interac is one of the larger companies that hire for the private sector. I've heard good and bad things about Interac. Some people have had great experiences, some people not so much. Maybe it just depends on who you deal with in the company. Again, I don't have personal experience with going through the interview process for them, but there are many videos on YouTube, just like Jet, about people's experiences, so I would definitely go check those out if you're interested in Interac. My company is in Eikaiwa, but it's not a large company like Interac is or like Jet is. It's a smaller company, and as I said, they're called IAC, which stands for International Adventure Club. Way back when, it was a tourist agency, I believe, and then they started branching off and doing some English classes, and eventually that grew into its own thing. So the full name is IAC, International Academy of Language and Overseas Study. It's a long one, so everyone just says IAC. They have several offices in Okinawa because that's where they were based originally, the International Adventure Club. And there are 2 schools in Fukuoka, and I work at those 2 schools. I do have some videos coming of a coworker's wedding. I just went to Okinawa for her wedding, and it was so much fun, and I made sure to vlog portions of it for you guys. So those are coming. But that kind of camaraderie of knowing your coworkers well enough to get invited to their wedding is pretty awesome. And while I'm not saying it doesn't exist in larger companies, it's much more prevalent in smaller companies. So what's my advice for getting over here? I was lucky enough to know someone in this company from when I was in Japan 6 years ago. And they're the person that was like, hey, you know, we kind of need a new teacher. Are you interested? And I was like, of course I'm interested. I would love to work with you. So it's thanks to her that I really got this job. But for those of you who don't have some way back when connection to pull out, my advice would be to go for a bigger company, go for Interac, go for Jet, go for a company that doesn't seem to have a horrible reputation following it. Do your research thoroughly before you choose your company, and then come over here with them. Larger companies have the benefit of having a more streamlined process. It's really, they know how to get you your visa, they know how to get you a place to live, that kind of stuff happens quickly. So it's a really good way to come over. A lot of the apartments are pre-furnished, which mine was not, so that's a huge cost that you don't have to worry about. So come over with them, work the year contract, but while you're here, put out your feelers. See if there's any smaller companies nearby that would, you think, treat you on a more personal, person-to-person level. Just when you get here first with a company that's efficient and good at getting you here, and then try to figure out exactly what you want to do. That would be my advice. Sorry, my video just cut off, so I had to add this on the end. But so yeah, that would be my advice for getting over here. My company is pretty awesome. In the public sector, you will teach more high school students, middle school students, elementary school students, whatever schools that you're sent out to. But in the private sector, you will teach the whole gamut, which I do as well. You will teach, I have 2-year-olds and I have some obachans, some grandmothers who are like 75, and they're like, hey, why not learn English in my spare time? So I teach the whole gamut, although I primarily specialize in children. That's who I mostly teach. But I have coworkers that work primarily with adults, so it depends on what the company you're working for. But I love teaching my kids. I love my kids. So I think it's really a good job if you come over here with an open mind. And if you've never taught before, the most important thing I've found is to come over here with the mindset of, I am here to learn too. I'm not here to pretend I know everything, because you don't. Just accept that you don't know everything about this job yet, and then slowly you're going to get better at it. So just come over here with a mind for learning as well. And I'm sure that's true for being an ALT too. I'm sure there's an adjustment there. But that's what I've found being an Eikaiwa English teacher. You will have the brunt of doing most of your class prep though, if you work at an Eikaiwa. And by most, I mean all. Because you're a full-on teacher. You run your own classroom. You discipline your own classroom. I do have a curriculum with which I work, but I'm given flexibility on how to get there, and that I enjoy as well. I'm not sure if that's the case as an ALT, if you get to kind of choose what you do for your portion of the class, or if that's decided for you. I'm not sure. But I really enjoy the creative aspect of being able, like, oh, this kid would really respond to doing this. Let me change this part of the class to work for that child. So I appreciate that kind of freedom. Please, if anyone has any personal experience with that in the ALT world or in the public school world, let me know. Or if there are people that work for Eikaiwas that don't give them that freedom, go ahead and leave a comment below so that people watching this video can know who to work for, who not to work for, depending on what they want. So I want this to be a space of communication here. I'm just talking about my personal experience. But I think it's a wonderful job and I really enjoy it. Yeah, you just gotta come in and ready to learn everything that you can. But that's kind of a short version of my story, a little bit of a comparison. I'm gonna go eat the soba that overflowed earlier. Look forward to my Okinawa videos. They are coming. I am in the process of editing, so those will be up soon. Let me know if you have any requests, and I will check back in with you guys in a bit. Done it.